Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review Team News reaction video. The teams have just dropped from Easter Road. Of course, Rangers in action this evening against Hibs. I'm Derek Clark, of course, and I'm joined by Jonny McFarlane to discuss the team that Michael Beale has entrusted to get the 3 points over in Leith this evening. And it's an unchanged 11 from the team that beat Kilmarnock at the weekend. I'm not entirely sure if that's the first time he's managed to name an unchanged side since returning to the club. But I'll just give you a rundown of that Rangers team, folks. It's McGregor in goal, Tavernier, Goldson, Davis and Barisic at the back, Jack and Raskin alongside Todd Cantwell, with Sakala, Kent and Cholak, the front three. On the bench for Rangers this evening, McLaughlin, Lundstrom, Hadji, Matondo comes back in to the matchday squad in place of John Souttar, Kamara, Morelos, Wright, Arfield and Devine. Joshua called that team in his predicted lineups. Jonny, I sort of had an inkling that if Jack was 100% fit, he would play. Otherwise, I had Lundstrom in my team. But the same team as from the weekend. I don't think you can have too many complaints, can you?
No, they played terrifically well in the first half, ran out of steam a little bit in the second, and part of that is just, you know, a combination of players either coming back quite recently from injury or not having enough game time. So you've got to hope that players like Nico Raskin will have benefited from getting all those minutes into his legs last week and comes back in this week in an even better condition, and that will continue as the games go on. You noticed, I think, quite rightly, Derek pointing out Rabbi Matondo coming in is probably the most interesting aspect of that team line in terms of the fact that he's on the bench. He's been out injured, obviously, and posted on social media to suggest that he was back. So interesting that he comes right back. No John Souttar, as you say. He drops out after playing in that B team game in the last couple of days. But I think the big talking point, you can tell me if you agree with it or not, is Antonio Cholak up there ahead of Alfredo Morelos.
Yeah.
I've talked in detail about Alfredo Morelos on these videos in the last few days and why I thought that Cholak would remain. You heard Michael Beale talking in detail about what Cholak brought to the table against Killie. Very good assist for Sakala's goal. I think he was heavily involved, obviously, getting the shot that was well saved by the Killie keeper before Connor Goldson turned in the first. Don't know if that's an assist or not, but it's certainly not far off. So he's heavily involved in the first two goals there, and Michael Beale waxed lyrical about what he brought to the table, saying that, look, if this is the guy that you had at the start of the season, then I can see why he got so many goals, because I haven't seen that guy yet. You know, fair's fair. Cholak looked real sharp in that game, and I'm not surprised to see him starting ahead of Morelos, because Alfredo, to me, hasn't looked as good in recent games as he did in the first few games under Beale. And I think for me, gave Callum McGregor, I know it wasn't his role to stay on McGregor the whole game, but I thought he gave Callum McGregor a little bit too much space in the Old Firm game. So Cholak, I think, deserves a run, given that Morelos is looking likely that he won't be there next season, and it's up to him to go and grass the nettle, get the goals, and get himself up those scoring charts. We know that he's a goal scorer. We know he's a fine finisher, but it's time for him to start hitting the net again. It's the bottom line at Rangers, Derek. There's no excuses. There's no BS. It's the bottom line, and the bottom line is, if you're a Rangers number 9, you've got to start scoring. So, a couple of misses against Killie, and he won't hopefully be so profligate this time.
Yeah, he would have had a goal at the weekend if Sakala had played him in, unless instead of going for goal. But that's another story. I fancy him tonight to get back on the score sheet. I liked the cut of his jib, as they say, when he was put up for the press on Monday. He's got that look in his eye that he's determined to get back amongst the goals again. And David Thompson raises a good point. Tony Goals at the double tonight. He's going for a 2-0 Rangers win. And of course, you mentioned there Alfredo, Jonny. It's not a bad option to bring off the bench for Michael Beale. He has attacking options on there. I know it's not the Alfredo of old, but if Rangers are chasing a goal, then it's not a bad player to bring on if you need to. Interesting point raised by Rob Call here. No Tillman again. Was there anything said at the presser on Monday? I think he touched on this at the weekend where he said that Malik should be back for the Scottish Cup game against Raith Rovers. They were targeting that one as opposed to the match against Hibs. Jonny, in a weird way, the Raith Rovers game is a bigger game for me. Scottish Cup, obviously, the most realistic chance of Rangers of getting silverware, so I can see his reasoning on that, not to sort of rush him for this one.
I know what you're saying, Derek, but at the moment, the way the climate is around Rangers, every game's huge.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, Michael Beale is under pressure on the back of that League Cup final. Pressure because of his own mistakes. I think the players are under pressure. Ross Wilson's certainly under pressure because the firing line has been turned very much on him. As people start to look at the bigger reasons, the larger reasons for failure in that League Cup. And if there was to be a defeat tonight, I think it starts all that pressure off again, despite the fact they got the win against Killie. You know, you just need to keep winning. And I know what you're saying, though, when you're talking about this game on Sunday being the most important, because fundamentally, most of us believe that this title is unlikely to be recovered. It's not impossible, but we think it's unlikely. Therefore, the Scottish Cup is the big one. That's the chance to stop Celtic going for a treble. That's the chance to reclaim the Scottish Cup. Never mind what they're doing, reclaiming the Scottish Cup, keeping it in the Ibrox trophy cabinet. So that's really important. And it will be a real test for Michael Beale to keep the show on the road. But let's be honest, domestically, he's been superb since he walked through the door. And Hibs, there'll be a lot of emotions swirling about in the air tonight, I would think. Obviously, the sad passing of their chairman and owner, Ron Gordon.
Yeah.
You'd have to imagine that will have been a difficult week to have been around the club, because I know he was a well-respected and well-loved figure who put a lot of his own money in to keep things going during COVID. And I'm sure a lot of those players are there on the back of Ron Gordon putting up those finances. So I think the fans of Hibs will want to make their own appreciation and have their own atmosphere and go out tonight and make a showpiece occasion as a mark of respect for him. So I think it'll be a difficult one.
Yeah.
But, and I was talking to Josh about this and he put me kind of right, because I was saying that I thought it would be a difficult fixture. And he said, you know what, the thing is, Hibs will come out and attack Rangers. And that's what Rangers want. That's what Rangers want. You saw that against Hearts at Tynecastle, exactly the same scenario. You're going to a ground where there is a little bit of history of it being a difficult one. It's a tasty atmosphere, a decent team, exactly the same with Hibs. But Rangers were able to use that brilliant ability they have of winning the ball high up the pitch and causing problems, because Hearts came out and played, and I think Hibs will do the same today.
Yeah, that raises a point. Maka gets in touch to say a Tynecastle type performance or a tough ground out win. He says, I would love another Tynecastle performance. Rangers haven't hit those heights. What a joy that was to watch them that night at Tynecastle when they blew Hearts away. But I just foresee it being a tad tougher this evening, but I do fancy Rangers tonight. Interesting point raised by Paul Muir. He says, why do we not have any centre-backs on the bench? And Duncan, or just on the back of that, says, take it, Suter is out injured yet again. He played the B team game yesterday against Celtic. Of course, he played a fair chunk of that game, Jonny. I think it's just about getting him minutes in his legs, and I would envisage we'll see him at the weekend. I think there'll be quite a few changes against Raith Rovers, and it's perhaps just one of those ones where they're just trying to manage him and manage his game time, because he has been out for some time.
You'd think so, Derek, but it is slightly curious that he's not there. It's probably that, but I think we'll find out come the end of the game, because somebody will certainly ask. What I would say is John Lundstrom is clearly the centre-back on that bench. He's not a centre-back, but that's his facility on that bench tonight. If anything goes wrong with either of the two defenders, he'll be the one that comes in, because there's no one else, and there's no one else that's really adaptable to do that. So that's how that'll pan out. You wouldn't imagine, for example, that Barisic or Tavernier are going to come inside. Should the worst happen, that's how I think Michael Beale would handle it.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't materialise at any point. Interesting point raised by Mark. He says, do you think that Matondo will get a chance if Sakala isn't working, or do we have to be winning? I think he means there. Matondo's an interesting one, of course. Michael Beale said himself he had suffered a crisis in confidence. He has struggled since arriving for a decent fee, it has to be said, and he looked sharp in pre-season, but for one reason or another, Jonny, it's not quite happened for him. However, perhaps this little layoff that he's had may have done him the world of good. He's back in the squad tonight. Remains to be seen if he'll get an opportunity to come on the pitch, but he's certainly got talent there, the boy, hasn't he? So you just hope that perhaps he's been working hard in the training ground and he comes back a different player to the one that we've saw so far.
Yeah, I'm going to try and be really positive about Rabbi Matondo here, right? And just think back to that first game. There's a half-time substitution in that game against, remind me who it was?
West Ham.
Was it West Ham? Yeah. And on came Tom Lawrence and Rabbi Matondo, and they were both absolutely electric in that game. And you thought to yourself, wow, two really, really good signings here. Two boys that look hungry, full of pace, energy, power. And I was pretty convinced. I think Joshua was pretty convinced. I mean, all know Joshua knows what he's talking about when it comes to tactics and players, that this was a guy that was able to go down the line. He was able to come inside. He was quick, skillful. And then from there, it just fell apart after that and really impactful opening.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt there's a player in there. There's talent. But it's whether or not Michael Beale can get to the nub of the issue with this lad. £3 million is a lot of money. I don't know if it was quite that, by the way, but that's kind of the reported figure. And he won't be on peanuts, that's for sure, in terms of his wages, having been at some good clubs. Now, he was very effective in Belgium last season. He did have a good season. So what I think Michael Beale has to do is do what he's good at, and that is developing this young player and getting the best out of him. And hopefully he is able to not just get inside his feet, but get inside his head. Yeah. Improve him both mentally and physically. And if he can do that, then you've got half a chance. But if I'm being honest, Eric, from what I've seen based on the season so far, it's kind of hard to be too optimistic about Rabbi Matondo. But time will tell, because there's still enough time left that you can turn it around. But he will need to be right bang on it. I was about to mention him there in terms of Fashion Sakala tonight, Derek. You talked about this missed opportunity that you had at the weekend in terms of this wonderful ball by Ben Davies. Put it on Twitter. Finds Fashion out there on the right-hand side, and he elects to shoot. Now, to be fair, it was a great save. But if he cuts it back there, bit of composure, Cholak's got the tap in. I didn't think it was a game against Kelly there that, you know, he looked at his best.
Yeah.
And we know he can be a bit erratic. I think Fashion Sakala's got to be better than that on a more consistent basis. And I think if he's not half decent tonight, he's going to be potentially going to have his place in the team up for grabs. Rabbi Matondo can look at that and probably think to himself, there's an opportunity here to get under the manager's skin, to make myself an option. And that's all he can do at the moment. But Fashion's got to up it tonight, and I'm pretty sure he will, Derek, because I feel like against Hibs there's going to be spacing behind. There's going to be an option for him to utilise the pace that sets him apart from the rest of the team.
Yeah, I just hope his decision-making is spot on this evening. Interesting point. Well, Chris McGill, first of all, says, do you think the young Turkish left-back will win the part tonight? He's not in this matchday squad, Chris. Never travelled with the team. He's another one that had a fair few minutes in the B-team game yesterday, and Redvan should return at the weekend. I'd imagine he may even start against Wraith Rovers at the weekend, but I'd imagine he will get some game time I think on Sunday.
He's had obviously a fairly serious injury, Derek. The length of time he's been out with the hamstring, I think it was described as the worst possible hamstring injury.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would be wanting to take any chances with that, given the level of the issue. Yeah. And I think you might be right. I think Wraith Rovers either as a sub or on from the start with 45 minutes under his belt or something like that. I think that would be a smart move. But I think everyone's excited to see this guy, and I know for a fact Michael Beale is, because I asked him about it a couple of weeks back. I was talking to him about it, and he did say, you know, Ridvan offers something completely different from what you get with Borna. Borna hugs that touchline. He's got an outstanding ability with his crossing, but Yilmaz is a bit more three-dimensional almost. He can do multiple things. He arrives late to be able to cross the ball. He's someone who can pass his way through. He can go inside. He can go outside. He's an exciting talent, Ridvan Yilmaz. And obviously, it's really disappointing that we've got to March 8th and we're talking about it and we've only seen flashes, having spent so much money on him, so much money by Rangers standards.
Yeah,
so I think he can be a big player in the future, but obviously he needs to find a way to remain fit, because if you're not fit, then you can't offer anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give you a rundown of the Hibs team, folks, it's Marshall, Hanlon, Cadden, Hop, Jago, Stevenson, Henderson, Ewan, Fish, Egan, Riley, and Campbell. So that's how Lee Johnson's men line up. And they're in a rich vein of form at the moment, Jonny. I mean, they've not lost a game since that Edinburgh Derby Scottish Cup defeat to Hearts. A 6-0 thrashing of Aberdeen is in there, although don't know if they can read too much into that. It was Jim Goodwin's last match in charge, of course, of Aberdeen. But since then, they've had a thumping 4-1 win at Livingston, and they've done pretty well. Michael Beale did touch on this in his pre-match press conference on Monday, saying that they're playing, they're in the best moment of the season for them. So it's going to be a roll up the sleeves job tonight. I think need to win the battle first. I think that the likes of Raskin and Jack will be pivotal tonight. They've got to win that midfield battle, and hopefully the forward players, that their quality can shine through in the end. How do you see it ending up tonight?
Yeah, I think Rangers will win, because I think Hibs will come out to try and win the game. The manager there, Lee Johnson, has obviously got his detractors, and he's had poor results against Hearts. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
but he does try and get the ball down. Michael Beale's talked about it himself and pressures that I've been at. You know, he's an admirer. He likes to look at this Hibs team, and they've got some good players, and I think they do. They have players that can hurt Rangers. But having that space in behind that Rangers have the quality to exploit does give you something a wee bit extra in these games, and I think that will be ultimately the decider. I think it's going to be 2-1 Rangers. But this is a very important game to win, and that's all that counts at the end of the day. 3 points.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a brilliant performance. I find myself saying this a lot, Derek, as you know. You've heard me say it a few times, but I've seen worse Rangers teams defeated at Easter Road, and I've seen a lot better teams defeated at Easter Road. So, you know, it's a tough place to go, and it doesn't matter if you're a 9-in-a-row team or this team. It's never actually that easy to go through to Leith and get a win. But it's always through there about getting in and winning the battle, and that's going to be key to tonight. And that's why Raskin and Jack in the centre of the pitch gives you a little bit of probably a sense of secureness about how they're going to operate in there. They've shown that they're going to add a bit of energy and a bit of experience. Raskin with the energy, Jack with the experience, and then you've got Cantwell, who can do a lot of things with the football. So this is a test for them, though. You know, they've got a lot of plaudits in the last game. This is going to be against a real opponent. Kilmarnock, Derek McInnes is a good manager, we know that, but they are in the lower lights as he rebuilds that team. Hibs are one of the best teams in the league and have been for most of the season. They've been pretty unlucky when it comes to results. If you look at the underlying data, Hibs have always been there or thereabouts in the sort of top 4. And finally, that's come to fruition eventually, now that they've gone on a decent run of form. But we'll see. You can never tell with a situation like this, Derek, how a team will react. You know, the high emotion of it. You don't know how close some of these players were to Ron Gordon. You don't know how the fans will react to the festivities is the wrong words, to the marks of respect that will be in place. Does it heighten everything and make that emotion even stronger and make them try even harder, or does it kind of have the opposite effect? Sometimes it can do that. I mean, I think the perfect example is just last season and the way Rangers players responded after the sad passing of Jimmy Bell, and they went out against Leipzig and performed so well. And you remember several of the players coming to the camera and saying that was for Jimmy, that was for Jimmy. They clearly, that was something they wanted to do as a mark of respect to him. So that's always something that can throw a spanner in the works in these type of games when there's a high emotion element around it. And I think that's one that Rangers do well, to just try and keep the game as calm as possible and try and manage it properly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the match unfolds, that's for sure. I'm going with Aldo, as I said this morning. I'm going for a 3-1 Rangers win. He's going for a Raskin with the first. I don't care as long as Rangers manage to acquire 3 points in Leith and head back down the road, then I'm sure everyone will be happy with that. Just a quick reminder then, folks, of that Rangers team. If you're just joining us, it's McGregor in goal, Tavernier, Golson, Davis and Barisic at the back of midfield of Jack, Raskin and Cantwell, and Kent, Sakala and Cholak up front. On the bench for Rangers this evening is John McLaughlin, and then they go with Lundstrom, Hadji. In fact, it's just popped away from me there. I'll just bring it back up there in a wee second. Yeah, Lundstrom, Hadji, and Devine, Matondo, Kamara, Morelos, Wright, and Scott Arfield. So that is a team that's going to line up this evening, folks. Hopefully your team wins. Joshua is at Easter Road for us, so hopefully we will have all the post-match reaction. So stay tuned to the website and all our social media channels for all the reaction to tonight's game. And of course, we will be back tomorrow morning for an in-depth look back at tonight's event. So we hope you can join us for that. But for now, bye for now. We'll speak to you later on.